Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA Breaking News. As we predicted yesterday, the governor is going to line item veto the budget. I think that's how we're supposed to read this. And he is going to unleash emergency spending now for schools. The governor said that the budget that came to him is garbage. Called the Republicans' budget garbage and called on them to return to Harrisburg and do their jobs. He said they simply left town before finishing their job, he said, and they left all of us with the real mess. The budget doesn't add up. He listed a host of grievances. We'll be interested in seeing what those are. And, what's really interesting about this whole thing is the governor did this on day 182 of not having a budget. The governor, when he was given the same basic budget before, vetoed the whole thing. He could have done this again. He could have line itemed then. So why did he incur all the pain on people since then? Well, with a reaction this morning to the governor's decision at 10:30, we have Scott Wagner, who's the senator from the 28th Senatorial District, and he joins us here on the Gary Sutton Show. Thank you on such short notice, Senator. We really appreciate you being with us this morning.
Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
Happy Merry Christmas, and I guess I'll be saying Happy New Year at the end.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah, we hope it's going to be a Happy New Year anyway. So what's your reaction to the governor's reaction here at 10:30 this morning with his press conference?
Well, Gary, for me personally, I'm somewhat taken back that the headline on Penn Live is Wolf calls GOP budget garbage. And calling the budget sent to him by lawmakers ridiculous and an exercise in stupidity. And all of us should be outraged at the garbage GOP leaders have tried to dump. Wow, I'm very much taken back. And, Gary, I'm going to say this morning. I've tried to be respectful to the governor. I don't agree with a lot of his philosophies and what he's doing, but maybe it's time to take the gloves off. Number one, I was elected in an unprecedented special election, which I truly am honored and appreciate everyone who came out and wrote in my name. I have a career. My career is Penn Waste. I love the waste business, and the beauty about what I'm doing is that I don't need the job and I don't need the money. So that makes me very clean of all the political games in Harrisburg. I went to Harrisburg with a 30-year private sector business background, and I don't have a financial degree, but over 30 years, I've learned to understand financial statements, how to build a business, how to balance revenue and expenses, something that Harrisburg does not know how to do. And I serve on the Appropriations Committee. I sat through, I think, 31 of 33 hearings, almost 80 hours. I have printouts after printouts after printouts of the budget. I take what I'm doing very seriously, and the governor is being held accountable. And trust me, I have not been silent in my caucus in the Republican Senate caucus in Harrisburg. And as a matter of fact, we had, I had a, huge, I wouldn't call it, it bordered on an argument, debate with our Senate Majority Leader Jake Corman, who I have a lot of respect for, and our pro tem Joe Scarnati. And I told them I was willing to vote for the $30.2 billion budget last Wednesday. Absolutely, I will not stand for any tax increases. And one day, and again, I have a lot of respect for, Senator Scarnati. One day, and I'm talking, discussion we had in caucus, he made a comment to us. He said, Scott, and when I had my business, and he had a bar and restaurant business and a successful one up in his area, he said, when I was in business, if I had to raise my prices, I had to raise my prices. And, in caucus, you can't have a back and forth conversation. But afterwards, I took a few moments with Senator Scarnati. I said, Joe, listen, what you said is exactly correct. If you have to raise your prices, you raise your prices. But I also know a little bit about you, that when the beer truck showed up at your bar and restaurant, that you were outside there counting to make sure every case of beer that you ordered, those 100 cases of beer, got off that truck and went into your restaurant. Not 98 cases, not 97. And when the food truck showed up, you were, if the strip steaks were on or turkeys, you were making sure you got your 50 strip steaks and your 6 turkeys or your 8 prime ribs. And I said, we don't do that in Harrisburg, and he totally agrees. So, this governor, he wants it his way, and for him to, is he calling us stupid, exercising stupidity? Because I think that's really, it's borderline. And listen, if he wants to call me stupid, I'm okay with that. If that's how he thinks. But I take this job seriously. Pennsylvanians cannot afford more taxes. Number one, there's a lot of things. We are not doing anything on the spending side. And for Gary, this has been going on since 1970. 1970, that's 45 years ago. There have been, people say you should compromise. Listen, there's a difference between compromising and cutting a deal. Cutting a deal is where somebody makes out more than the other person. And I think deals have been cut over the last 45 years by Democrats and Republicans, and it's time that it stops.
Well, and the people that have been making out in the deals have not been the people of Pennsylvania. And so I would ask you this question then. Is it amateur hour right now in the governor's office? I mean, we have a year now that's almost gone by. What does the governor have to show for that year, other than he's fighting for his ideology right now? And I'm taken back that he could have line item this veto when you guys put the stopgap measure out last time. He vetoed it totally, and then he comes back now, how many days later? Here we're day 182, and he says, oh, this time I will line item veto it, and I'll send money out to help the schools that have been screwed during that time, some of whom, by the way, one of whom you helped out yourself.
Well, unfortunately, the money's not going to get to them soon enough, and there'll be another loan that'll probably be advanced today or tomorrow to Thaxton because of these games. Listen, I think the problem, it is amateur hour in the governor's office, and Governor Wolf is an amateur at this, and he is a very, very smart guy. He went, I don't know whether we went to MIT, Stanford, he has all the pedigrees, but unfortunately, with all the pedigrees in the world, that doesn't mean you have common sense. And this governor does not have any common sense. He's not. There are Gary, there are so many items. You and I could walk through the Capitol, start on next Monday morning, and come out of the Capitol Friday afternoon and find $2 billion in savings.
Scott, the one thing, not to interrupt you, but the one thing, we're seeing on a national level too, is people are sick and tired of people who are saying, and saying things over and again and not doing. I mean, you've got a history of doing. Okay, we talk about Donald Trump. You can say what you want about Donald Trump, pro or con. I don't care how you feel about him. But the guy was a doer. And we're tired of seeing people go in there and talk. And then we're also tired of people not respecting our money, as you laid out with the example a while ago about the beer showing up there at the guy's restaurant. You're telling us that we're going to invest. Well, investing goes on me. I decide where to invest my money. Well, I don't even get that decision right now. People who represent me decide they're going to invest my money, and then they're going to tell me, well, we're investing it more in education, early childhood education, or we're going to invest in this. Well, I don't know what that all means. I was in education for 25 years. My master's degree is in educational administration. But when you tell me I'm going to invest in that, well, I don't know what that means. Tell me what that looks like, because I've seen you invest money before in Philadelphia, and I'm wondering where the results are. When we invest, we're supposed to be getting back some kind of return on our investment, aren't we?
Absolutely, Gary. And I'll tell you what upsets me more. You talk about Philadelphia. I've talked about this in my email blast. And back in July, there was a headline: no bid schools contract is costing millions. And the Philadelphia School District, who did some no-bid contracts. They have spent $3.6 million in legal fees, okay? And then there's the story about the ghost teachers in Philadelphia.
Right.
And it's Philly ghost teachers made more than $1.7 million last year. You know what? Enough is enough. I'm starting to get sick of hearing about Philadelphia.
Well, here's a question for you, Scott. Shouldn't Philadelphia, our major city in this Commonwealth, shouldn't that be the shining example on the hill of the best educational system? I mean, when you think about it, you're going to say, well, that sounds idealistic. No. Shouldn't that be, if we're pounding more money in there than we are in any other school district in this state, and you say this is the biggest one, wouldn't people who are putting that money in there want to make sure that that's the very best out there, and the rest of the state can say, man, there it is. They're putting money in there. Look what they're doing. Hey, we can do better. Isn't that a fair request for the taxpayers who are investing their dollars there?
Absolutely. And I think, Gary, number one, Philadelphia is just, is lined with corruption. And when you talk about these no-bid contracts, you talk about the ghost teachers who are really working for the unions. It's enough. My head spins when I think about it, and it's all I hear about is Philadelphia. Gary, I chair the Urban Affairs and Housing Committee. There are areas in the state of Pennsylvania that look like ghost towns. The blight is unbelievable. You go to southwest Pennsylvania, the oil and gas industry number one, it started 25, 30 years ago. The steel industry left. Now the coal industry is getting impacted. And now with the price of natural gas and oil prices at historic lows, people are getting laid off. If you go down into Montgomery County, Delaware County, Chester County, Philadelphia County, in around Philadelphia, those areas they're doing great. I mean, they've got great economies, are busy. A lot of biotech, it's sort of the IT capital down in Pennsylvania. But, there's more to Pennsylvania than Philadelphia. But Gary, I was elected to go to Harrisburg to ask questions. Listen, there's a saying in business, turkeys flock and eagles soar. And I got to tell you something, I'm not a turkey.
Well, let me ask you a question. You own a big business here. You own Penn Waste. Yeah. So let's suppose, I hear politicians talk all the time. We're going to help the middle class. We're going to help the middle class, whoever the hell that is anymore. We're not even sure who that is. So we're going to help you. Okay, you're going to help us. All right, how are you going to do that? Well, okay, I come to you now in Penn Waste. I say, Scott, you've been pretty innovative in your business. You've been able to do a lot of things with that. You've managed to figure out ways to get out there and give people a good service. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more regulations on you that you're going to have to follow, and I'm going to invest more of your money in other things. You're going to have to give me more money over the long term to invest in education and all these various things. I'm going to take more of that money away from you that you might have used for other innovations or to expand your business more, to do whatever, and I'm going to put it elsewhere because I think I know better how to spend your money than you do. Would you tell me how that is helping you as a business owner, as a citizen, as a person who was innovative enough to go out and put risk on the line and risk your own funds and your own money to go out and do a business, and now the government takes that money away after you've risked that and said they can do better with that than you can, and you show a very successful business, and they show the unsuccessful business of education in Philadelphia? Would someone please tell me how that is not insanity?
It is insanity, and I think history has proven, number one, there's 17,000 pages of federal regulations, and I don't know how many thousands of pages of Pennsylvania state regulations there are, but I can tell you we have a federal deficit that is off the charts because, money was not, again, we hear about the $600 hammers. Trust me, the federal government's spending $600 for hammers when they buy them because of all the overhead and all the different paths that everything has to go through.
And the hands and the till.
But Gary, you and I could meet at Lowe's in East York. We could meet at Lowe's in East York in 30 minutes, and we can walk in and buy a hammer for $4.95.
Well, why do we think we see right now in healthcare, for example? I talk to people all the time, doctors who are going out there and starting pay for service. They're going back to the old days. Okay, you pay me a monthly fee, I'll get you the stuff at a lower amount. And there again, innovation comes from the private sector. It does not come from the public sector. All the public sector wants to do, here's a governor, it's fighting over, I want more money. I want my way, or I'm going to take my ball and go home. And the other part about this too, Scott, and we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and ask you, why did he do this the first time when it went up there? Why did he inflict this pain on regular folks here in the state of Pennsylvania that he ostensibly represents? We're going to ask Senator Scott Wagner that question when we come back right here on the Gary Sutton Show. It's News Radio 910 WSBA. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show. Scott Wagner, the senator from the 28th Senatorial District, with us here this morning. We're going to have Stan Saylor on a little bit, too, the 94th Legislative District. He's a representative. He called Governor Tom Wolf a liar the other day. Jeff Sheridan, the spokesperson for the governor, fired back at him and said, how could you say that about the governor? Well, if you're not telling the truth about $1 billion, that was a one-time amount of money from the federal government, and then you say somehow that should be included in the budget every year and you have to make up for that shortfall, that's a lie. I mean, it's been proven to be a lie, right, Scott?
Absolutely. You know, Gary, you asked me the question right before we went off the air. You know, why did Governor Wolf not approve a lot of these items in the budget? I think it's number one. I think somebody has got a large ego, and is it Governor Wolf or is it the people around him? Is
like
it
John Hanger?
Is it John Hanger? Is it his chief of staff, Mary Eisenhower? Somebody's got an ego that is just off the charts, and this ego has kept our state on pins and needles for the last 6 months. I mean, you know, the EITC credit letters haven't gone out yet. Entities and schools having to go out and borrow money. And, you know, as I got to know the people at the Lincoln Charter School and the Thaxton Charter Schools, to have them to have teachers wondering whether they're going to get paid or not is I think is got to be, you know, it's got to be it's gut wrenching, and these are people who care about children. And then children, let's face it, that filters down to the children, and you know they wonder whether they're going to have a school to go to.
Right.
Next week.
Well, you got like the Logos Academy, same kind of thing going on. You're exactly right.
Logos is a situation where, you know, now where Thaxton gets their money directly from the state, Lincoln gets theirs from New York City, and then Logos they're really they get private funding, but a lot of that private funding comes to them because of the
EITC,
EITC credits. But I think, you know, more importantly, Gary, is And again, I'm really somewhat taken back by the governor's statements this morning.
The one thing that really jumped out here, Scott, before you continue on there, is that John Hanger, speaking for the governor, called the Republican budget, quote, another display of fiscal irresponsibility, unquote. And I'm sitting here going, is that the cat calling the kettle black? Fiscal irresponsibility. The governor had a chance to line item this the last time, which is essentially the same bill he got the last time, and he treats it differently. Who's fiscally irresponsible right now? And when you talk about fiscal irresponsibility, again, it comes back to, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but it comes back to the fact of, are you still campaigning, Governor, or are you governing now? In other words, fiscal responsibility would be, you tell us, if you really respect us as citizens, what you're going to spend that money for specifically and what the outcomes are that you expect to see. And how is that going to be different from what you've done before when you pounded money down a rat hole? Not you, but the people prior to you.
Correct. And I think that it's not working. It's the status. I did an email blast 2 weeks ago on the status quo, and the status quo continues in Harrisburg. But this is a time right now where you need a very, very strong leader, and Governor Wolf is not that strong leader. Governor Wolf, you look at his background. He didn't start from scratch. He didn't scrape. When I look back at people who started their businesses, I started my business really at age 20, and I've come through 5 recessions. The worst was 1980 when the prime interest rate went to 22%. And we need someone who has hands-on experience, survival skills, and you know, when you buy a family business that was 170 years old, and I mean, he started out on third base. And most people who start businesses start out, you know, they start out on home base, and you struggle to get to first and second base. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to get to third base, and then the governor went around all 4 bases real quickly. And honestly, I like third base. I really have no interest in going to home base because I like third base because it gives you a great view of everything, and gives you, I think it keeps you in check. But this governor has absolutely zero common sense. And what he's done to the people of Pennsylvania over the last 6 months has been a tragedy. And I apologize. I apologize to the people of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think it's a shame. When you look back at the last year, and you're the governor, it's your first year in office. We'll make another baseball analogy. If you go 0 for 4 in a game, it's not good. You get a 4-year term as governor. I'd say he's definitely 0 for 1 in the first year, because what does he have to show for his first year in office of work? Listen, I don't begrudge the governor starting out in a family business or carrying it on or making it better or whatever. I don't have any problem with any of that. But I do have a problem when you haven't apparently along the way also learned the lesson of how to respect the money of those people who are giving you money, and that is the taxpayer of the state of Pennsylvania. When you're asking for more money, you damn well in these times, when we've had a recession and people are still feeling like we're in a recession in some cases, you better have darn good reasons why you're taking more of our money away from us, and that's what he's asking to do right here with his money, and he says, I don't get enough for education, I need more. You owe it to us to specifically say, not in a campaign speech, but in specific governing words, what you're going to do with it. About a minute left, Scott. Final thoughts.
Gary, this whole thing is going to play out. I think this is almost like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. I just talked to my chief of staff. I would like to know how the money's going to start flowing, when it's going to start flowing. Governor should have got up with sort of a plan. Or not sort of a plan. He should have got up with a clear plan and direction of how the money's going to start flowing. Listen, Gary, everybody continues to pay taxes into the state of Pennsylvania. If you get your paycheck this week, your withholding money is going to go to PA. If you bought a car yesterday at one of the car dealerships here in York County, you paid sales tax. The money's sitting in the account, and so what this governor is doing is just really it's almost terroristic what he's doing to the people that depend on the cash flow that they have budgeted for and that they deserve. And it's everybody throughout Pennsylvania. So I think the next 7 to 10 days are going to be very interesting to see what happens.
It's going to be very interesting. And I know the question is going to be asked, why didn't you do this before and save a whole lot of people a lot of pain? And I think the other questions that you've already asked this morning, you continue to ask, is specifically what do you want to do with that money? Tell us for the first time clearly where that's going to go and how it's going to be used, and quit trying to kind of cloak it and saying, I want to keep on sending it to Philadelphia so I keep on getting voters come out to vote for me later on. That is not what we need to see anymore, I don't think, Scott. Scott, appreciate you being with us on such short notice this morning. Thank you so much. Appreciate the hard work, and a very happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Gary.